Before we dive into dealing with asynchronous data, I'd like to refactor a few things. We're currently in what we call a green state. We have a few tests to indicate that, green tests, but of course in our case, we don't really have very good test coverage. The more green tests we have, the greater would be our confidence to make changes to the source code. But we also have other signals indicating a green state. For example, this application rendering correctly in front of our eyes without any errors in the console, that's also another valid signal that we are in a green state. Even the fact that Webpack is rendering correctly and PM2 is not giving me any errors, these are all valid signals for my green state. So I feel confident about doing a little bit of refactoring at this point, and all of these signals combined will give me the confidence that my refactoring didn't really break things. So the first thing I'd like to refactor here is the server render file. I think this file shares a lot of similarities with the index file under the components folder. Server render renders the React application to a string, while the index file here under components render the React application to the DOM. So I think these two files belong under the same category, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new folder here, call this folder renderers, and I'll move index.js under renderers. Since index.js is the renderer for the DOM, I'm going to rename it to dom.js. And I'll also move server render under renderer. I'll just call it server in there. So rename it to just server. Now you'll see right away that my signals are starting to give me indicators that things are broken now. So we need to fix them. So we can actually simply use a git grep command to see where we used the server render file before. So it was only used in libserver.js, so let's go there. And previously we imported the function on the same level here, so now we need to import it from librenderers server. The index file, we can grep for index and see where we used it. And we only used it in the Webpack configuration file, so we'll go to Webpack config. We previously indicated that the entry point for the Webpack configuration is components index.js, and now it's renderers/dom.js. So this should actually make the Webpack renderer and the signal here happy. It doesn't look like PM2 is happy, so it cannot find that. And the reason is we are actually on the same level, so we don't need lib. Now here's the thing. This is starting to become confusing, right? I have to keep track of where I'm rendering a file from. Am I on the same level as renderer? Do I need to go up level and then go to renderer? So I think the relative require in this case is not a good option. I think it's better if we can do something like start from lib. Or better actually, start from renderers, because all of our code is under the lib directory. Now, when you're requiring a file from the same level, like we're requiring config here, I think relative require in that case is okay. It's a good signal that the file is on the same level. But when we start requiring files from different level, like going up 1 or 2 levels and then going down another level, this relative require becomes confusing. I think in that case, an absolute level require is much cleaner. And there's actually a really easy way to do that in Node. All we need to do is indicate the node path variable before our command. So if I go to package.json here, I start my command with PM2 start. I can say something like node path equal /lib directory, which means all of my requires should start from under the lib directory. So let's actually test that. Let's check the status of the PM2 process. So I have a PM2 process here. I actually need to delete this process. So I'm going to do PM2 delete server. And we'll start a new process using our dev script that understands the node path. So yarn dev. And let's check the logs one more time. Yarn PM2 logs. And looks like we have another error. And this error is because in server.js, we are referencing a wrong path. So let's fix that under server.js. So the components folder here is no longer on the same level. So now, with the node path configuration that I just did, I have two options. I can either go up 1 level, and this should work, or I can just say components app, because the components folder is directly under the lib folder, which is my node path. So let's check that out. PM2 is happy. It's running on 8080. What about Webpack? Webpack is still not happy. So in dom.js, let's go to dom.js, cannot resolve app. Again, we are not on the same level anymore. So we'll do components app. But here's the thing. This node path trick that we did for the PM2 process is not going to work for Webpack, because Webpack actually uses its own logic for resolving the files. But the fix is easy. In the Webpack configuration, all we need to do is add a resolve property. This resolve property is an object, and in that resolve property, we define a modules property, and that's an array of all the folders that we want Webpack to use for resolving its dependencies. So now we have a new folder, and we can use path.resolve here. And my new folder that I want Webpack to resolve at is the /lib folder. But I also need to include the node modules folder in this case, because I am overriding the defaults. So now Webpack understands that it should look inside the lib folder and inside the node modules folder when it encounters a require line. Let's test. Restart Webpack, and there you go. Things are rendering. Perfect. Let's see if the tests are passing, and they are. Let's now test that the application is rendering, and it is. So what I just did is called green refactor. Basically, I am refactoring a lot, but I am in the green state. I know things are working. I have plenty of signals to indicate that. So I have more confidence in the refactoring that I just did. This is important to remember. Never refactor code in the red state. If you have failing tests, if you have an application that's not rendering, it's not the time for refactoring. Get the tests to pass first. No matter how bad the code that you write is to get those tests to pass, get them to pass first. Get the application to render. Get all the signals to give you indicators that things are working. Commit that state, then refactor.